let's get into our full review for today, because this movie, Janine, is absolutely massive. Is it going to be as massive as its predecessor? Possibly.
I mean,
Probably not.
when we do this
However,
show, in doing the show, we typically have to kind of watch that week's release, the previous week's release, the week it comes out, right? So we can talk about it here on the show.
yes.
And there have been a lot of pretty big things, at least I thought were pretty big things, um, that I would go see on the Thursday or Friday of release. And I go online, I push my ticket, I go to find my seat, and the theater is pretty open, pretty
Yes,
blank,
exactly the same.
and it's like an evening time showing at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock on a Thursday or Friday. Still pretty a decent amount of seats available. Um, I went to buy my ticket for this movie in an IMAX theater, which is massive. Like, I believe the seats go all the way up to like K, L, like in terms of letters.
Okay.
And um yeah, it was packed. I was squeezed in between two people in the very, very back row. Like,
Oh.
not really any room to move. And I'm like, what? This is crazy.
Now,
So yeah.
look, obviously, we're talking about Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yes.
The 13-year awaited sequel to the highest
Yeah.
grossing movie ever, Avatar from 2009, which itself, let's not do discredit to Avatar, is a good movie.
It is.
Do I
It's
think it should have been the highest grossing movie ever? I don't think it's got the quality to be the highest grossing
No, I
movie
mean, the
ever.
story is very generic. So, I mean, the thing that it had going for it was this new innovation in filmmaking. That's kind of what made it, I
Yes.
think, as big as it was. It wasn't really the storytelling, because it's a very, people constantly make the Dances with Wolves, Fern Gully kind of
Yes.
tease about the plot,
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas kind of tease of this plot. So it's not an innovative story in any way at all, but it just kind of how it was able to kind of do something completely different and new in terms of motion capture, in terms of filmmaking, and just look so striking, and the time that went into it, I think, is what made it
Yeah.
as big as it was.
And capture the 3D craze that was obviously more expensive to buy a ticket
Yes.
at the perfect time in 2009. Now, I don't think people care as much about 3D these days.
No.
I don't think as many people are saying we have to go and watch this in 3D. Now, I might be wrong at that, because I didn't think that. I simply went for a 2D screen
Okay.
because I did not. I don't really like 3D. If you're giving me a 3D movie, give me a gimmicky 3D movie from the 50s, like The Mad Magician with Vincent Price, where he's
The
squirting
Tingler.
water directly into the camera. Or House of Wax, where you get the guy with his ping pong ball thing, just whacking
my
it
gosh.
right into the camera lens, just so you know there's a 3D shot. The immersion of, I remember watching Avatar in 3D, and yes, the immersion of it's wonderful, isn't it? I don't know. There's something inherently, I like distance. I like kind of, I'm here, the movie's there, let's watch the movie. Let's not necessarily have some sort of existential experience.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with an existential experience, but I don't know. In my movie watching, I kind of tend to not prefer 3D.
Okay.
So I just went for a normal 2D screen for this movie. But
I saw it in IMAX 3D, so.
oh, you probably have a more accurate to what James Cameron actually wants you to
You to see it
experience
in,
from this
yeah.
movie then. What I'm just most baffled by, and let's call it what it is, I actually think Avatar: The Way of Water is a great movie. I think it's a really interesting story, actually. I think it's got way more interest to the story than the first movie had.
Yeah.
I think it's a really unbelievably wonderful reintroduction to the Na'vi, to Pandora, to all of it,
Yes.
given the fact it's been so long since the first movie,
Yeah, like,
that
I
it
had
just
to
kind of seamlessly gets you back in, and it's really impressive
Yes,
how it just lets you know exactly where you're at, exactly, you kind of get hints of, "Remember
where we
this?
were.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and then once you get the little bit of, "Remember this guy?" Yes, you're in. You don't need to have too much, "Remember this guy, remember this person,
Yeah,
remember
which I thought
her,
I
remember
was
him."
because I didn't have 3 hours to rewatch the first film, which I wanted to do, but I just didn't have time. And I was watching, like, a recap before I went into it, and I couldn't even finish the recap. So I'm like, "Ah, shoot, I'm gonna be so kind of lost in remembering kind of where we left off and how we got here and all of those things." But yeah, like you said, it was really kind of seamless to jump us back into this place with these characters. It felt like, okay, this is where they would be all these years later,
It's
having a
really
family of their
impressive.
own, them kind of being the leaders of kind of defending, their clan, um, raising this family, getting rid of the sky people because of kind of all the damage that they were causing in that last film and
Yeah,
kind of the
and they're
war that
still
happened.
trying, the
Yes, and the
Sky people, they're
Navi.
still trying to
Yes.
come.
Yes, and the Navi kind of um pretty much winning that big kind of battle between the two. So it would make sense that they're sending the sky people away. And so yeah, like it definitely got us into what we needed to know, even kind of showing us footage of, Sigourney Weaver in the lab and
Yes,
showing
yeah.
Stephen Lang, as, his general and kind of explaining it to his avatar. So I like that they did it in kind of
Oh,
this
he's
video
kind of
log.
clone avatar, isn't it? It's
Yes, like, before he was about to kinda go, I think, on that final mission, they, like, saved all his memories and did this kind of whole backup plan situation, um, to ensure that he would kind of live on in some way. So I like that,
yeah,
him doing this video log was the exposition for us. So I like that, when you can do exposition that way, so it's not completely clunky. He had a
yeah,
reason for kind of making that video because he needed to explain it to this avatar who's not going to understand what's going on, but it's also an explanation to us. So when you can do exposition and not have it be super clunky like that, and you can work it into the story somehow, that's the best way to do it. So I
it
appreciated
is.
that at
It's
least, the explanation to the character is also an explanation to us. So
it is really it was really surprisingly well reintroduced, and I
yeah,
felt that was very, very important. That was the most important thing for it to do,
yeah,
and I think it did it really, really well. I just wanted to mention before we really start talking about this movie, just how kind of not confused, but I think people like Avatar more than I realize people ever liked
yeah.
Avatar.
Because like I
And this
feel
is a
like
weird thing. This is a weird thing for me to say because it's the highest grossing movie ever. So of course,
yes,
like
but
loads of people went and seen it, and loads of people must like it. But this was 13 years ago.
yes, and you also feel like this underlining kind of people teasing it and mocking it and people kind of making fun of it and feeling like it's low key, like, uh, thinking it's better than it is. And like, I feel this like underlying tone about these movies coming from
Maybe we're
people,
just in the
but
wrong
yet,
circle.
but yet, these movies are making the money. People are going out to
The,
see these movies.
these
So,
screens are
yeah,
packed. There
yes,
was loads of screenings for this movie. Like, in my local cinema
yeah.
where I go, I had to go like, even mine was just absolutely ram-packed. The cinema itself was as busy as I've seen it in a
Yeah,
long time.
I literally was like, "I just want some nachos because this is gonna be like a 3.5 hour movie. I need some food, I need a drink," and, like, I
I
had
couldn't
gotten
even get a
there
cup of coffee because the queue was too long, and I
so
would have
long.
missed the start of the
Yes,
movie.
and so I got there, like, I think maybe 10 minutes before the movie was gonna start. I was literally in line, like, for 20 minutes. Luckily, by the time I sat down, I still got, like, 2 MCU trailers, and
Oh, I didn't
then the
get a
movie
single
started.
trailer
Really?
because I was
When
queuing for
I
this
walked
coffee, and then I
in
just thought, "This is going too long. I'm gonna have to just go."
Yeah, when I walked in, I think I got Ant-Man and Guardians of the Gal I walked in on Guardians of the Galaxy, I sat down, it was Ant-Man, and then the movie started.
Okay. No, I
So,
I I walked in the last kind of cinema ad before the title of the movie
mhm,
comes up with the
yeah.
certification and you go in.
Yeah.
That's when I walked in and, so I was really kind of cutting it short there. But the place was packed. And
Packed, yeah.
this is clearly something that James Cameron's just been able to do for his entire career is somehow
Yeah.
not be not be a filmmaker that film or movie people view as the greatest, but be a filmmaker that the masses, the public, view as one of the best because he
Yes.
always just makes the most successful movies.
Yes. I
And he
mean, he's not
just
the king
seems
of the
to have
world,
this.
but he's the king of the
Yeah,
sequel.
he is. He just
Yeah.
seems to have this thing about him
Yeah.
that he's able to just make these movies. And yes, there's the intrigue of the technological advancement. And look, that's really the impressive thing about
Yes.
Avatar: The Way of Water is the totally new style of watching a movie that it actually visually is. I've never seen a movie that looked like Avatar: The Way of Water before.
Yeah.
In some negative ways, but in mostly incredibly positive ways. But what it is innovative. What it is different. It's
Mhm.
new. And that is what we've got to commend James Cameron and everybody else who's behind the making of this movie for doing,
Yes,
is
and I
making it
actually
look the way it looked from having
yes.
nothing tangible in the movie whatsoever, because it's 95% totally CG
Yes.
or
And to
motion
create
capture.
to
There's
just build
barely
all
a
of this.
human face.
Yes, to build all this stuff from scratch, to have these kinds of characters, these motion capture characters who are also like scale wise different sizes from like the human characters,
Yeah.
and have them interact and work together, and in this world that's totally not even there, and have it seem so fluid. I think um that's kind of what is the champion of these movies and what sells these movies over kind of any kind of story. But I will say with this one, with Way of Water, I actually did enjoy the story. They did have a
This
lot
is what I
of
was saying, yes.
it
I
did
think
branch
it's a
off
better
into
story than the first Avatar.
yeah, it delved off. I think I've seen people kind of complain about it delving off into like way too many different plot threads. But I think if when you do that and you can make them all kind of work together and come together by the end, then I think that's successful. You can put as many plot threads you want in there, but if they can kind of come back in an interesting way, play into kind of our big finale, work with developing an arc for a character to kind of get them to where they need to be character wise by the end of the story, then put in as many plot points as you want. But if you have a bunch of plot points in there just to be clever and then none of them or most of them don't go anywhere, that's where it's kind of disappointing. But I think every kind of strand of a plot thread that they introduced us to in this film came back around by the end.
Yeah.
So
There
I think
was
it worked.
look, this wasn't even a movie that I was massively interested
Me
in going to
either. Me
see.
either. Me either.
And there was times when it actually felt like what we refer to as a Morgan movie that just lets you sit in a scene, in a situation for seemingly too long,
Yeah.
that seems to not really mean anything or
Yeah.
seems to not further anything of what's going on in the movie. It might mean something. It usually does mean something. These are the points. These are the character scenes. But you're sat in extended scenes of water training, swimming, bonding with fish creatures, and things like this that just seem to take ages. But these are my favourite parts of this movie.
Yes,
My
like, I
favourite
thought it was
parts of
gonna
this movie
drag
is when it
on.
feels the most like a nature documentary. It's
Yes,
phenomenal to
and those are
look
the
at.
scenes that looked the best too, like,
They were. They were.
I got to see some of these clips at D23. I think James Cameron showed at least 8 to 10 of these clips, and he like put some curtains up. He gave us 3D glasses, lowered the lights, and we watched several scenes from this movie. And kind of all the scenes on land looked a little too smooth, like it had a smoothing effect on it. You know, the movement was a little bit kind of gummy, a little bit kind of static, not naturally fluid, and looked very much like a, you know, the weird zooms, very much like a video game cutscene. Um,
Now,
but when we got underwater, those scenes looked absolutely gorgeous. So when we were spending more time in this underwater world, and we were even seeing creatures that seemed very relatable to kind of real undersea stuff, it felt very much like you said, kind of nature documentary, and it looked
yeah,
gorgeous.
there's
And the
whale-like
movement,
creatures.
yes,
There's whale-like creatures that are a massive part of this movie.
yes, the movement felt fluid, the movement felt realistic, how the hair moved and how people were kind of swimming around and moving their arms and legs and all of that, all felt very kind of real. So underwater scenes, I already kind of, you know, because of the clips from D23, I already kind of had this idea that the underwater scenes were gonna be way better than anything
Okay.
else. But yeah,
Yeah,
getting to see it was
I
absolutely gorgeous.
I completely agree. All the water, thankfully, the majority of the movie is kind of with our water tribe and in the water, surrounding the water. A lot of it's underwater,
Yeah.
and it really does look beautiful. And there is one, I don't want to even call it an issue. I guess it's a personal thing with me in watching this movie. Mainly the land stuff, but I mean the entire movie really. The the frame rate is just it's way too smooth for my preferred movie
Yeah.
watching. I like old movies. I like movies to be quite still and
Not
have
so
24
fluid. Yeah.
frames per second, please,
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. And this is such a smooth motion of everything that at times it feels like a simulator theme park ride. And at
Yes.
times when towards the beginning of the movie, when we're still in like the forest islands and all this kind of stuff before, you know, Jake and Neytiri and the family have gone to the water, there was times when it made me feel dizzy, when it made me feel quite ill, really, because it
Yeah.
was just kind of too smooth. It was giving me a bit of like, "Oh god, am I gonna struggle to
Yeah.
watch this movie?"
Yeah.
Thankfully, once you got to the water, it seemed to
Be a
not
lot more
do that to me.
smooth. Yeah. More fluid in terms of kind of how things were moving. And underwater, like it's not as kind of jarring as kind of in the air type stuff as well.
No, 'cause I mean, the camera and I mean, I don't know. I'd be fascinated to learn how they actually, how James Cameron actually managed to film this movie.
Well, I
I've
mean,
never really understood how you film a movie like this that's not
yeah.
tangibly there.
Well, I think I saw Sigourney Weaver kind of doing an interview, and she was talking about basically, yeah, they like, you know, film every kind of aspect of their movement. And then James Cameron is able to kind of put it in this computer or this system or this other camera, and he's able to kind of pick the angles. So he is not getting kind of organic angles of how it was shot. He's making up his own angles, making up his
Right.
own kind of directions of how things look, how we're seeing things. So he's manipulating even just the
So
the
he's
the
kind of
lighting and all of the,
post-directing.
yes. So he's putting them in a position where he thinks they
Okay.
look best. He's creating these camera angles, you know, himself. They're not like
Yeah,
organic camera angles. So I
this
think
is what I
that
mean.
probably plays into the the bit of kind of disorientation that maybe you were feeling,
Yes, I think it probably does, but
because
this
these
is what
aren't
I mean in
natural
terms
camera
of
movements, you know.
this is this is what I mean in terms of James Cameron. You can't fault the guy because he's just doing things that nobody else tries, that nobody else wants to do, but
Yeah,
he's the only person that's
attempting these things. Yeah,
attempting these things. He's the only person bold enough to attempt these things, and some of them will work and some of them won't. And God, I really do hope mainstream movies don't go the way of over smooth frame rates because it might mess with my head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, a little too
I know I
much.
sound like the people now that says, "Oh, movie, we shouldn't have talking pictures. They'll never take off. Movies must be silent." You know,
Oh
I know I
man,
sound
Morgan.
like that.
Yeah. A little bit.
And
But
then
I
look
get
what
what you're
happened in
saying.
1927.
Yeah.
But I'm not discrediting the technological advancement. I'm just saying I don't want. I'm just saying it will mess with my head
Yeah.
if we get too many movies that are clunkily done in this heightened frame rate, or this more frame rate, this not 24 FPS, which is a standard movie frame rate. Because it does feel like a theme park ride to me at times, and there's only so much simulator theme park rides I can take before I genuinely do feel ill.
Yeah.
So it's not good, and I imagine the 3D is probably even worse for people's headaches.
I
and these
mean,
kind of
yeah,
things.
it was a little, it got a little kind of blurry and in terms of just like how things were moving and
Yeah,
it got a little intense at times, and I think also where I was sitting was just not a good spot. It was
no, it doesn't
I was
sound
at the
particularly.
very, like, if I was kind of in the middle, like a few rows down, I think it would have been more direct, but I was at the very top back in the middle.
Yeah,
So I feel
yeah,
like I was kind of not at the right angle to get the shots kind of coming at me properly. So
which
that
is
was
a
a little
shame.
weird. Yeah.
Which is a shame,
It was a
but you
little bit
shouldn't have
off.
to be in. You shouldn't have
The
to be
right
in
spot to
the
get
right
the
spot.
full effect. Yeah.
No. Which is again why I kind of 3D is a bit weird, because if you're slightly off, it just seems like everything's over there and
Yeah.
nothing's here, and it's all a bit strange.
Yeah.
But I do think the movie is beautiful to look at. It's unbelievable to look at.
Yes.
It looks better than Avatar, the first one, looked visually. I think there's more beautiful things. There's more impressive things to look at.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that they've decided to do this frame rate change, because Avatar didn't. Avatar looked,
Yeah.
that had a regular frame rate, and that still looks great. I think
Yeah.
there's probably part of that in this movie, in The Way of Water, is a reason this movie looks a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I would almost rather look at still images and kind of quiet scenes. There's no static camera in this movie either. The camera is never still. Never.
No.
Never,
It's
ever,
always moving.
ever
Yeah.
just still. It's constantly moving. But I really do think it's a visually unbelievable movie. And I think the story is great. I think the story's
I
a
really,
hell of a lot better than the first movie. I don't know how
yes.
necessarily spoilery you want to get, but I really, it captivated me. I felt for the family. It's a family movie.
Yes.
It's a big picture theme movie.
And kind of the
these are
learning
the kind
curve
of things
and
that I just like.
yes, and then getting to kind of see a different type of people, a different type of not avatars, but Navi, these water people who are kind of, their bodies are adapted a little bit different than the ones we know. Their coloring is a little bit different, and kind of the learning curve that Jake's family is going to have to go through in order to kind of work with these people and be a part of their kind of world. So I liked kind of this no pun intended fish out of water type situation in terms of Jake's family kind of having to adapt to a new place, and our villain, he's very much, Stephen Lang is very good at playing your kind of mustache twirling villain, but I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with hating him. And
but it's Stephen Lang in Navi form. It's Stephen Lang's avatar, clone avatar. That's the actual villain. It's not the same character technically from the first movie. It's his,
but he's harboring with these memories of the same kind of vengeance, and coupling that with now kind of sky people and mankind back, you know, they screwed themselves and depleted all their resources on Earth, and now they're like determined on, you know, very much the story that we got in the first film, you know, removing these people who are from this place, from their homes, so that they can, you know, terraform this place to Earth standards for now humans to come and live there,
Yeah,
because they screwed
it's
up
gone
their own
even.
circumstances. Yeah,
It's gone kind of one step further, really, hasn't it? In between, because there's been many years. I forget now how many years they actually say it's been technically in, you know, in
yeah, I
world
don't remember.
since the first movie, or the events of the first movie. But obviously, in that first movie, they were getting that mineral, weren't they? Trying to get that
Unobtainium
kind of,
from underneath
yes.
their kind of life tree.
That's what they wanted. In this movie, there's something they want that's, you know, very unobtainable. It's not unobtainium itself anymore,
It's a
but there's
place
something that's,
to call home now. The Earth is
but
destroyed.
yeah,
They have nowhere to go, and now they want to turn
way
this
more
planet
so.
into their own kind of home and take it
Yes,
over.
way more so.
Yeah.
Way more so. The human beings are interested in habitating Pandora.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they have to remove the people that are already there. Doesn't this just sound like Dances with Wolves too?
Yes, and I mean, we
No.
also get some like, you know, we also get some like evil kind of poacher type situations
We
happening too
do.
in terms of the
Yes.
sea life.
I would like to make a point. I
Yes.
like how they made the one respectable person in that party of essentially whale hunters.
Oh, it's
I
Jermaine
like how that was
Clemens.
Jermaine Clement.
Yes, yeah. I liked him talking shit to that other guy.
Why was he also using an American accent when
Yes,
the
it was
other dude
very
was
weird.
using an Australian accent? So why
Yes.
can't you just
He
have
just
Jermaine using his
using his
normal New Zealand accent? It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it was very weird that he was very talking like I'm like a scientist. And,
It doesn't
yeah.
make any
It
sense.
felt very
But I
weird
was
seeing that
not
voice come out of him.
expecting to see Jermaine
Jermaine
Clement in this
Clements,
movie.
yes, yes, and he was talking very much like I'm an American. I'm a
The very
scientist.
few human faces you actually do see,
Yeah, it's
as
Jermaine.
well as Edie Falco from Sopranos.
Yes, yes.
She was in
She was kind of
there
like the
as
new
well.
general. Yeah.
Other
And
than that, everybody's Na'vi, really.
yeah, well, and then we
Notable.
have that spider
Oh, a
character.
spider, of course, yes.
Yes, yes.
Who is technically Stephen Lang's son that had to stay there because he was a baby, and you can't send babies back in cryo sleep.
Yeah, so he just kind
So
of
he's
was left
grown
there.
up. He's grown up with Na'vi. He's grown up
and
as a human. He's basically Tarzan.
Yes, and he's like, you know, endeared himself to Jake's family, although Natiri's
Yes.
like, no, he's not one of mine, he's not my family, but the children love him.
Typical Natiri. She's
Yes.
so distant.
Yes, Jake looks out for him as well, so he's kind of like impromptu like family member to them. So yeah, I liked kind of introducing that dynamic of this kind of like you said, Tarzan child, who through circumstances is now kind of, you know, allied with them, and getting to see kind of some returning characters. And also we did have some unanswered questions about some certain things. I think Sigourney Weaver is back in this film.
She is.
Yes, I don't think it's a spoiler.
Really,
I think these are
person.
things that have been revealed, but if you are worried about spoilers, she is the daughter of Sigourney Weaver's Avatar character. So somehow her body ended up with child somehow, and nobody really knows how it happened. So Jake and Natiri adopted that child as their own daughter. So it's like this unanswered question as to who impregnated her. And she also seems to have this kind of strong connection to Awa, their kind of spirit guide. So I don't know that we got too many answers in terms of those things.
We didn't know. Yeah. But look, there's going to be 87 more Avatar movies.
Yes, but it's like he needs to jump on it because, you know, I guess with motion capture, I mean, I guess you can kind of not really, it doesn't matter how old you are, but I'm sure, another 13 years from now, Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington aren't gonna be in the same kind of shape, or
I'm surprised Sam Worthington's still in any kind of shape, to be perfectly honest with you.
I mean, he was literally, there was a moment in time of like, Sam Worthington, stop trying to make Sam Worthington happen. He's not going to happen. It was like him.
And then he didn't happen, and now he's back.
It was like him and Taylor Kitsch, and it was like this whole thing of like trying to make them a thing. And it didn't quite work out. But yeah, I mean, he'll always have these movies to kind of.
He will. And he does now. And
even if I didn't have this epic career, I'm in like the biggest movie ever made.
I bet he's so thankful.
I am the lead of the biggest movie ever made,
and he will always have that.
Yes.
He will always have.
I mean, where has Sam Worthington been? Sam Worthington never has to work another day in his life, considering probably what money he's getting from. How big these movies are. I mean, I hope in his contract it was like, it is a royalty situation. I hope he, signed for a royalties type situation, because he will never have to work another day in his career. And maybe that's probably why we've never seen him, because he's just living it up. This Avatar money.
He is working because he's back, and he's
and he was great. And he was great. And like, I think in the starts of his career, like, I don't think he was that good, but I think he has really become like a solid actor, and especially kind of everything you have to do and emote in this kind of setting. Like, you are not, you have to use your face and you have to use your body to convey these emotions through this kind of CGI face. And he sells that. He sells and having to be this father of this family and this leader and kind of having to adapt and all the things he has to do. I think he pulls it off really well. He feels like, the true leader of this family, a great partner to Neytiri, a father who is involved in what's going on with his kids. He also does kind of have that contentious relationship with his youngest son, and
he does.
So that's kind of a parenting situation that we've seen before in film. So I liked that we got, he's not perfect by any means. He's, so I liked that we got to see kind of some fatherly flaws on his end in terms of kind of, what he had to do as a character. So he had a lot to do, and I think he was great in this movie. I feel like Neytiri was kind of sidelined a little bit. Like, she didn't really have as much to do. But I think, considering the focus they were kind of leaning towards, the focus was more on the kids. The focus was more on, which I think was great. Like, we already know, Jake and Neytiri. We know them. So let's get to know these new characters. Let's spend some time with them so that when, things happen, we feel something. So I like that they made,
and we do feel something when things do happen.
Yeah. So I like that they made these new characters and the kids the focus, so that we could kind of get to know them and care about them. And so I liked the performances, and like, you saw kind of what these actors had to kind of put into these roles. Again, Sigourney Weaver in this interview talking about how, it's the like acting in its purest form, because of all these things you have to do and imagine are there. And, you have to kind of build this whole world on this like blank stage, and sell it. So it's definitely a big feat in terms of the craft of acting. And I think everyone does an amazing job.
I really do think it's a really surprisingly good movie. More enjoyable than I originally thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
But just be aware of the frame rate, because there is times it does genuinely look like a video game. And like you mentioned briefly before, there's a lot of kind of these quick moving zooms. You'll notice it if you're looking for it.
You see that in a video game.
If you're not looking for it, you'll still notice it. But if you're looking for it, you'll definitely
see it. Yeah.
It's kind of surprisingly constant, and it looks so video gamey.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I don't love that. I don't love that.
Because it's like you're banking on this innovation. And so when you have scenes that feel very much like the best of video game cutscenes. Um,
Yeah.
it feels a little like, but I mean, overall, it looked beautiful. The underwater stuff was great. Even the moments, like you said, are kind of still quieter moments of the Sully family kind of learning to adapt to this underwater world. Those scenes could have been really boring, but you really kind of interested in them
The
learning
best scenes
and
in the
connecting
movie.
with these other people. There's scenes of kind of all these big kind of whale-like creatures that are kind of very much familial creatures to the water people, and like seeing them
Yeah.
swimming and interacting, like those scenes could have been really boring, but you were actually really invested in all of that, and you really were kind of going on this journey, and there were so many beautiful things to look at that those slower moments didn't feel boring. So I liked that as well. I liked this story, like that it still kind of had ties to the original kind of seemingly regurgitated story, but also kind of, took went its own way with it, the way of water.
It
And
did. Look, it did.
it
I
lived up
mean,
to that title, and it looked great. So
I think the biggest compliment we could pay is that we could genuinely talk about that movie for another hour.
yeah.
We can't. We have other things we want to do
Me
with
too.
today's show.
I mean,
But
this movie
I
was
think
very
that's a
long, so
massive compliment to pay about a movie that neither of us were really that excited to see.
yeah, agreed.
I do honestly think it's a wonderful movie. It's striking, really, how time and effort when someone with the brain of James Cameron is given time pays off.
Yeah.
Rather than rushing people a
Yeah,
la Marvel,
it felt worth the all of DC.
a la DC, a la Marvel, when it has seemingly become less able to pay off all the time.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Yeah.
You'll
I
get a
think
better product.
it was worth of the time that he put into this, I think. It
And
paid
even
off.
look what a very, very similar movie that came out earlier this year did. Top Gun Maverick. Took
Yeah.
loads and loads and loads of time.
Yeah.
Delayed after delayed. Let's get it right. Let's get it perfect. Let's get it right. And
Yeah.
look at what happened when it came out. It
Yeah.
nailed the damn thing.
Yes.
Time
Patience.
makes
Yeah.
a more perfect product
Patience
than
as well.
rushing on a factory line.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Avatar: The Way of Water. There's your big Christmas release. Which it is. It's the big Christmas release, isn't it?
Yeah. Smart timing
Everybody will
as
be going to
well,
see it
Mr.
at Christmas.
Cameron.
Wonderfully smart timing. God, I'm intrigued to see how much it's going to do.
Yeah, me too.
I really am.
Yes.
I'll be baffled if it goes close, but I won't be surprised if it's fairly up there.
Yeah.
I'm talking, maybe $1.5 billion. I would not be surprised.
Yeah. Yes.
I would not be surprised, which is mad, especially when a lot of people still aren't going to cinemas like they were 4 years ago, say.
Yeah. Or even 13 years
But yes,
ago.
or certainly 13 years ago.
Yes.
Certainly 13 years
And
ago.
I mean, considering, today, I'm sure the first weekend's numbers are out, but at the time of recording the show, we do not have those numbers. So.
Yes, we do not.
Yes.
Well, there we go, Janine. Let us get into our